Have you noticed how the world becomes uneasy when you stop reacting? When you no longer reply right away, explain, rush to please, everything around you begins to shift. Not because they have changed, but because for the first time, they must face the space you once filled. A strange silence follows. It is not loud, not cold, only still enough for you to hear your heartbeat, the one long buried beneath meaningless conversations. You once thought that being available was proof of love, of kindness, of connection. But some people only love you while you serve their needs. When you stop reacting, you see that truth clearly. Everything grows still. Jung once said, "People rarely realize the energy they lose every time they react." Each rushed message, each explanation, each burst of anger is a drop of energy falling out of you. You think you are connecting, but you are draining. You think you are kind, but you are eroding yourself. The hard truth is this: the more available you are, the easier you are to control. When you are always present, people learn to treat it as a default. When you always explain, they stop listening. When you always yield, they stop respecting you. Some relationships exist only because you are afraid to disappear. But when you go silent, the balance of power changes. No one holds your reins anymore but you. Silence is not a wall. It is a mirror reflecting what deserves to stay and what must fall away. The path you are about to walk is not about escape or coldness. It is about learning to guard your energy, to stay bright in silence, to withdraw yet remain present. And by the end of this journey, you will understand why saying no, why refusing to always be ready, will not make you lonely. It will make you free. Have you ever wondered why you feel drained even when nothing special happens? It is not the workload. It is the way you live on standby. A message arrives, you answer. When someone feels sad, you rush to comfort them. Someone asks for help, you say, "Of course." You react as if everything is urgent, as if silence means rejection. Beneath that quickness hides an old fear, the fear of not being needed. Jung once said, "What you call kindness is often fear of rejection wearing a softer mask." Everything grows still. In relationships, you become the one who is always there. When the other turns cold, you blame yourself. When they need something, you forget yourself to help. You wear the role of the rescuer, and piece by piece, your energy leaks away. At work, you do more, take more, and try harder to be seen as dependable. You think you are in control, but it is fear driving you. Fear of losing worth. You respond to every external signal, yet ignore the only signal that matters, yourself. And so, you stop living. You only react. Each yes, each "it's fine," each "let me do it," is a small surrender. You think you are loving, caring, and keeping the peace. But strangely, the kinder you are, the lonelier you feel. The more present you are, the more invisible you become. The more you try to hold connection, the more abandoned you feel inside. It is not because you are not enough. It is because you use availability to buy belonging. But kindness was never meant to be a love contract. When you live in constant readiness, you become defined by others. You stop choosing. You only respond. And when you only respond, you lose command of your own energy. That is why you are tired. Not because you gave too much, but because you never learned how to keep anything for yourself. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us in others reveals what we have not yet faced in ourselves." The line sounds simple, yet it explains nearly every emotional loop you are trapped in. When someone makes you angry, they are only touching a wound still open inside you. When someone makes you feel abandoned, they awaken the inner child who once begged to be seen. And when you are always ready, always reacting, always present, you are not doing it for them. You are doing it for the frightened part of you that fears being forgotten. Everything grows still. Jung called this mechanism the persona, the mask we wear to be loved, to be accepted. You wear it every day without noticing. In love, at work, in your family. The mask says, "I'm fine," even as you collapse inside. It smiles when you are tired, replies when you wish to stay silent, and comforts others while you feel empty. And you think that is a responsibility, but in truth, it is how you give away your energy. Jung believed that every reaction drains a portion of your psychic energy. When you argue to prove, you deplete. When you explain to justify, you leak. When you stay silent out of fear, your energy freezes. We seldom see it, but the greatest exhaustion does not come from labor. It comes from being drained by others. People do not steal your time. They steal your energy through your constant availability. And one morning, you wake and no longer recognize who you are, only a reflection of the world. This is not a path for those seeking ease. It is for those who seek freedom. Do you see how you are controlled by your own reactions? How many times have you said yes to keep the peace while something inside screamed no? The answer lies in what Jung called psychic energy, the invisible current that decides whether you feel strong or weak, bright or dim. Because energy is the only thing you truly own. If you do not learn to protect it, someone else will use it to control you. If this content is making sense to you, click subscribe and stay with this journey. Thank you for being here. Now let us go deeper into the place where this energy is created and where it quietly begins to leak. The unconscious. Jung said the unconscious is not a dark place. It is everything you have not yet dared to see. Inside it, psychic energy moves like underground water, flowing through every thought, reaction, and relationship you call natural. But nothing here is truly natural. Each time you rush to answer, to explain, to prove, a little energy leaks out. Every justification, every fear of displeasing someone, becomes a tiny hole in the system of your soul. You rarely notice because the mechanism runs quietly, repeating until it feels like personality. People call you kind, available, and understanding. Yet they never see the part of you slowly fading from never being allowed to rest. Jung called this the complex of reaction, when your unconscious drives responses like music written by someone else. You do not choose, you only react. Everything grows still. There are relationships you know have ended, yet you hold on because silence feels unbearable. There are conversations you know are empty, yet you continue because emptiness feels worse. You are not afraid of people. You are afraid of the space their absence leaves behind. But that space is where your energy begins to return. Jung said, "What you resist will persist." Because you resist loneliness, it stays. Because you fear being forgotten, you keep showing up blindly. The loop never stops until you realize that sometimes disappearing is the only way to come back. Many will not understand. They will call your silence cold. But they do not know silence can be a ritual. The ritual of energy returning home. When you stop proving, energy begins to flow back. When you stop reacting, the mind grows quiet. And when you can sit in stillness without feeling empty, you touch the first layer of freedom. But this path is not for those who want ease. To reclaim energy, you must lose a few people, When you withdraw your availability, those who fed on it will protest. They will call you selfish, distant, and changed. Yet the truth is simple. You are only learning to live consciously. If you stay to the end, you will see why silence is not escape, but power. The quiet power of someone no longer ruled by their own reactions. Imagine within you an invisible reservoir that holds the full energy of your soul. Each morning, when you wake, it is full. It fills with breath, with light, with sleep, and with the quiet between two heartbeats. Yet through the day, drop by drop, it leaks away. When you react, when you please someone, when you answer out of fear, each moment becomes one drop lost. You do not hear the sound, but your body feels it. The head grows heavy, the chest tightens, the mind blurs like water stirred by too much wind. Jung called this the leakage of psychic energy. When you live in constant response, letting the unconscious steer the conscious, everything grows still. You once believed exhaustion came from a noisy world, but it came from no silence within. The reservoir never empties because of others. It drains because you left the valve open too long. Every needless explanation, every attempt to prove, lets the current escape. And silence becomes the lid of that reservoir. Not avoidance, but preservation. When silence is chosen, the water begins to rise again. Warmth moves from your chest to your belly. Your mind feels lighter. Your heart stops racing. You no longer speak to be understood. You stay quiet to understand yourself. Because when you stop, energy no longer flows outward. It begins to return. Remember the last time you chose silence, not from anger, but from peace. You felt a quiet kind of power. Not pride, not defense, just steadiness deep in your chest. That is real strength, not controlling others, but mastering how you use your own energy. Place your hand over your heart and feel its rhythm. Each beat is a drop returning home. Each slow breath refills the reservoir of your soul. And when it is full, you see the world differently. Fear softens. The need to prove disappears. What remains is presence, whole, calm, and real. Silence is no longer an absence. It becomes a new shape of self-love. And sometimes, one drop kept inside is enough to begin again. True power has never been about overflow. It has always been about what remains after everything else is gone. When you begin to hold your energy, the world reacts. Some feel uneasy, some call you distant, and others ask why you've changed. Yet what confuses you most is not their reaction, but the emptiness within. For the first time, you are not chasing approval. You start to hear your own echo, a sound you silenced long ago. Jung called this moment self-confrontation. When a person meets their truth without disguise, everything grows still. Think for a moment. Who makes you react the fastest? Who can shake your calm with one sentence? They are not enemies. They are mirrors. They touch the part of you still unhealed. When you want to explain, it may be the inner child afraid of being misunderstood. When you want to comfort others, perhaps you are trying to soothe yourself. When you stand silent yet trembling, it may be the first time you have chosen your own side. The people who drain you are not always cruel. They simply mirror boundaries you never set. Each boundary you learn restores a layer of energy. You begin to see that not everyone who needs help must be saved. Not everyone sad needs your comfort, and not every conversation deserves your reply. In that realization, a new peace appears, not because others treat you better, but because you stop wounding yourself. When you stop reacting, you see others more clearly. Who is real? who seeks your light to fill their void. Then you see yourself more clearly too. The part once fragile, now steady. The part once afraid, now still. Silence is no longer armor. It becomes a form of self-respect. You no longer beg to be seen because you are seeing yourself. You no longer need to be understood because you already understand. And when that happens, energy returns. Not loud, not bright, but like warmth spreading through your hands. You realize strength is not in reacting, it is in the ability to sit still without feeling empty. That is the final mirror. When you stop searching for your reflection in others and find it instead in the quiet returning within. You were taught to be kind, to respond, to be present, to understand others before they understood you. But perhaps no one told you that kindness needs boundaries, and silence has its own language. Jung said, "There is no awakening without darkness, and the darkness you just touched is where you learn to stop reacting. Reaction is instinct. Silence is power. Everything grows still. When you stop trying to keep others comfortable, you begin to see who stays for you and who stays for your availability. When you stop explaining, you see words are no longer tools of persuasion, but weights that once drained you. When you stop responding to what does not deserve your energy, you realize you lose nothing. You are simply reclaiming what was always yours. Inner stillness. From there, your inner language begins to change. Sentences like, "I must try to become, I can rest. I don't want to upset them because I need peace. And I must prove myself. Turns out, I only need to be present." You are learning a new language, the language of someone who has walked through the fear of being disliked, abandoned, or misunderstood. Jung called this the transformation of consciousness, when the soul stops reacting and begins creating reality. You start speaking to yourself with a different voice, no longer the harsh voice of judgment, but the gentle firmness of an inner parent. Kind, but steady. When you are tired, you no longer say, "Keep going." You say, "Rest, you've done enough." When someone leaves, you no longer ask why they didn't choose me. You ask why I forgot to choose myself. And through this shift, simple things become sacred. A quiet afternoon, a full breath, a silence you no longer need to fill. That is the new language of the soul, a language without words. It is the feeling of no longer fearing misunderstanding, of no longer needing to explain or prove. You no longer say, "I am strong." You simply live as though you are enough. Silence becomes fullness. Peace is no longer a reward. It is the natural state of someone who has stopped losing energy trying to be seen. You are not fading. You are gaining weight, presence, gravity. You are not disappearing. You are returning. And sometimes, the moment you stop trying to be loved, you finally learn how to love. A love that needs no reaction, no response, only presence and understanding. Because when you are truly present, you no longer seek validation. You become the energy that makes others feel safe. That is the highest form of love. When you stop using words to connect and begin using the stillness of your soul to touch another. Awareness means nothing until you live it through small, deliberate actions. Jung said, "No one escapes darkness through thinking but through experience." Healing is not about knowing more. It is about living differently. Each day begins with small choices made with intention. When someone texts in a rush, breathe before you answer. That urge to react is energy preparing to leak. Pause for 3 seconds and ask, "Does this truly need me?" If not, let it pass. In silence, you are learning to hold your energy. When someone is angry, resist the urge to explain. Respond only with calm presence. They will hear what you do not say. that you have chosen peace over chaos. Everything grows still. Each night, write an energy journal. Note the moments you felt drained, the people who unbalanced you, and the things you wish to keep for tomorrow. By looking back, you learn to read your own psychological map. Every line is a marker. Every realization opens a door. Sometimes, writing just one sentence, "Today I stayed silent when silence was needed," is enough to remind you of progress. In conversation, practice one thing. Speak less, listen deeper. Not to understand others, but to sense your feelings while you listen. As you do, you reconnect with the living current inside. And finally, spend 5 minutes each day sitting in stillness. No meditation, no goal, only presence. In that quiet, energy realigns itself, like a lake smoothing after wind. Because healing never comes from effort. It comes from allowing things to rest. There comes a moment in this journey when you no longer need anyone to understand you. Acceptance no longer matters as much as being true to yourself. Jung said, loneliness does not come from the absence of people, but from being unable to speak what matters most to those who stand beside us. That line explains the quiet that follows awakening, the still phase after growth. You no longer argue, you no longer need to prove. You choose silence, not because you have nothing to say, but because you know peace never grows from noise. Everything slows and stills. When you stop reacting, the ones who live on your energy begin to drift away. Some leave, some stay, but none can make you lose yourself again. That is the natural filter of life. You are not losing connection. You are keeping only the true ones. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming yourself, where the soul stops merging with the outer world. The first taste of solitude is bitter, but it slowly turns sweet, the taste of freedom. In that stillness, you hear your real voice again, soft, clear, and alive. You realize strength is not in making people stay, but in staying centered when they go. When you can remain steady in loss without collapsing, you become untouchable. From there, a new quality is born, steadiness. Not the rigid kind, but the gentle firmness of someone grounded. You grow selective with words, with giving, even with silence. People feel the weight of your presence. No effort, no explanation. Just a quiet gravity that tells them you are no longer easily moved. That is the power of someone who guards their energy. Peace is not the absence of noise. It is the art of not being swept away by it. When you stop proving, when you stop reacting, balance finds you. True strength is not doing more. It is knowing when to stop. And one morning, you wake up with no urge to chase anyone, no hunger for praise, no need to announce your growth, because you are living it. Peace is no longer something you seek. It is something you have become. When the child within you is finally heard, something strange happens. The pain does not disappear. It transforms. From wound to wisdom, from fear to strength, from emptiness to space for breath. You realize that what you once called loss was simply the return of your true self. Everything grows still. No more noise of proving, no rush to be loved. Only warmth spreading through your body as you pause long enough to feel yourself again. Jung said, "No one becomes light by imagining it, but by making darkness conscious. And the moment you face that darkness, light begins to rise. You no longer need to become someone else because you are already what you were searching for." Peace is not a prize. It is the natural state when energy returns home. You are not stronger, you are more real. You are not colder, you are quieter. And when you stop reacting, you do not lose the world, you find your soul. Remember, Healing is not erasing pain, but seeing the beauty within it. The pain that once imprisoned you has become your teacher, and in this very moment, you no longer need to become because you already are. If this message reaches you, write in the comments, "I choose my peace." Because when you say those words, you are not only sending them into the world, you are sending them back to the small part within you that has waited so long to hear them.